Welcome, welcome, welcome. Welcome back to another week of Tiny's universe around the Macroverse. I think today it says Tiny Valor's universe. So it's changing weekly. We've got different things going on weekly and different things to talk about. Thank you for showing up. For those of you um, that are just tuning in, I am Tiny Universe. Some of you know me as Scott. Some of you know me, most of you know me as Tiny. Um, I started as a comic book collector and moved to NFTs and cryptos, and it evolved into a whole world of learning how to draw and write and create comics and meet a bunch of amazing people. And speaking of one of those amazing people, um, Evan Matthews, one of the co-founders of Macroverse.
Hello, hello. Good
Hello.
to see you, sir. So we're gonna do something a little bit different this week. There's been some conversation in the KIA Discord that have highlighted a few things that I want to share. So right now we're live streaming on YouTube, we're live streaming on the KIA Twitter, we're live streaming on the Vogu Twitter, on Bushido's, on Macroverse. We're kind of simultaneously live streaming across our channels. And so I hope that, we're going to talk about what the thesis is around KIA, why we like the project, why we care about the project. And I think there's, certainly some people that don't quite understand what our approach to these things are, or haven't, kind of gotten into the thesis, into why we're doing this. Why do we even care? Why are we even here?
Yep.
So I think it's worth kind of going back to the beginning a little bit and breaking down, right or wrongly, kind of our thinking, my thinking, why I think what we're building matters, why I think projects like the KIA, Vogu, Bushido's that, in some contexts, GSA, in some contexts, may feel like not much is happening there. And to some degree, there's even some truth to that, but that there is actually a plan and a roadmap and an intent behind how we are thinking about this, and specifically how I'm thinking about this. I'll keep it centered on me. So what I want to do before I kind of start into that is I'm going to post a link underneath the KIA stream specifically. And since this is going to be focused largely on the thought process and approach that we have in mind for the KIA, for the Wallace, then I would like to invite anyone in the community who's a holder, who has been a holder, who has any sort of stake in the KIA to join the stream, and let's talk about it.
So, and I want to throw this out there as well, because, I know this is kind of on the spot, and maybe some people are working or they're sleeping or whatever, depending on what time zone or where they are, what part of the world. First off, I'm a holder. I'm not a big holder. I just have my one or two, but I love the project. I did at some point buy in. But I want to throw it out there. If you can't make it now, we can always do this again later. You're welcome to come back in at a later time. I want to have more community members come in and do more things like this anyway. But definitely, if you're hearing this, if you're seeing the links, come in tonight and let's chat, because.
So actually, sorry, Tony, I hate to do this, and apologies for anyone that has been watching up to this point. I actually just realized that we have not been streaming to the KIA channel. So I'm going to back up for just a second. I am at this moment. So just to rewind for a second, bear with me. So this stream tonight is going to be specifically about the KIA, the Koala Intelligence Agency, NFT project. If you now see the stream showing up, which it is now live, I have posted a link in the first comment where anyone that is a community member, anyone that has any sort of stake in the KIA, I'd just like to invite you to join the conversation. Like there's two things I'd like to accomplish with this stream. One is I want to share my thesis around why NFT projects matter, why I think they matter, why they matter in the context of what we're building, what I'm building, what Macroverse is about, why we even care, why we're here, where do we think this goes and how do we think we get there? I think there are some people that don't really understand what that thought process is. And you don't have to agree with it. This is not about me trying to win you over to this point of view, but I do want to lay out the point of view so that we're having a conversation based on the same concepts, based on the same, point of the same reference point at the very least. And then you can tell me that I'm crazy all you want, but I at least want to share, what got us here and why we're doing this, how we're doing this. So I do want to talk about that. And I do want to invite, anyone from the KIA in particular to join the conversation. But also if you're in any of our other projects, if it's, Vogu or Bushido's or the GSA or, Zeds or, any of the things that are kind of under the Macroverse umbrella, this is a time to chat about what we're up to and how we think we're going to be able to get to where we say we think we're going to be able to get to. So apologies for the repeat there.
Hey, I think, too, I think I personally would actually love to have people from Bushido's or Vogu or GSA actually come in because, they're kind of all in the same boat, but they have seen a little bit more action. And some of those community members have gone through some of the storytelling and gone through some more of the hands-on process that Macroverse is kind of known for. So I always love to hear their opinions and, kind of give a little input into why it's good. It's good for the community. It's good for the brand, for the, IP, for everything.
Yeah, exactly. So I think, that link has been posted on the Koala Twitter. So if anybody wants to join, if you're from a different community, it's, koala_agency is the Twitter handle. You'll find the link under there. But if you're in the KIA, this is truly an open invitation, and I am willing to have any part of this conversation with anyone that wants to have it. Like I am happy to be challenged. And I'll say, look, I come from a background of making things. So like my experience over the course of now, almost 25 years of professional experience is across making all kinds of different things. So initially it was branding and advertising and UI UX. Then it was video games and comics and animation, a little bit of film and television, a little bit of, actually a lot of new media. And a lot of problem solving. So a lot of working with all types of different creatives to figure out how to put the right people, the right things, the right pieces in the right places to accomplish specific objectives, whether that's shipping a game or printing a comic or building an app or creating an ad campaign or working with the director to, figure out how to sell their concept to an ad agency. Like, it's all for me kind of in the same world of looking at the pieces that are on the board, thinking about how all those dots can connect, thinking about what the kind of end goal is, and then slowly, methodically, consistently moving towards that goal. And so, we are now, 2021, we're 3 years into the Web3 space, and a lot of learning has happened in that 3 years. We've made some mistakes. We've also, I think, done some really cool and innovative things. And I think we've got I'm going to stop saying I have a very specific point of view as to how projects are going to be successful. And again, I think I am perfectly happy to be challenged on this because it is not the only way that projects can be successful, but it is a way that I think I and Macroverse can make projects successful. And it is something that is going to take some time to roll out. So here's the basic thesis. Coming from a world of content, we love to talk about IP and content in the world of Web3. One of the things that we recognize, I said I was going to stop saying we. One of the things that I recognized.
Listen, so Just to throw this, because I know where a lot of this is kind of headed without knowing what you're going to say, but I know that I'm aligned with most everything that you're thinking. So I'm perfectly okay with we, even
Well,
if we don't.
I may say we occasionally, but look, and Tiny, look, I actually I appreciate you as being someone that's been consistently on board and kind of a cheerleader, for everything that we've been up to. But I also like be the devil's advocate here, like
I wish I could. That's the thing.
No, but seriously, like ask even if you don't believe them, as we start to go through this, like ask the questions that you think
absolutely
that people want to ask if no one else shows up. So like, I really don't want this to just be like, hey, cheers, we're doing everything right. That's not the point of the conversation. So look, I think the core thesis is that there has always been a way that entertainment franchises have been built and developed. And especially in the world that we live in now, more and more and more that is franchise IP. So, there's a real problem in the movie industry right now where nothing original is connecting with audiences. People are not showing up. Furiosa, even, which is sort of a established brand, bombed at the box office this past weekend. There are lots of discussions about the belt tightening that's happening because streaming did not play out the way that they thought that it would. So there's a crisis in the world of entertainment to varying degrees about where do the next things come from? How do we build things that connect with an audience? How do we create things that people care about and are willing to spend their time and dollars on? And so in the traditional model, that looks a lot like I or Tiny or anyone, has an idea. They develop that idea. They work their way up the quote unquote kind of, corporate or entertainment ladder. They pitch that idea. They find someone that's going to back it, usually a studio or a streamer or production company or, perhaps a couple of wealthy individuals, depending on what, field you're playing on. And then they make that thing. They make it for the audience. I make this thing, I put it out, I hope you like it. If you like it, I make some money. I make the next thing, I hope you like it, I make some money. That's the cycle. And in that cycle, historically, the people that make the thing are not the ones that reap the greatest rewards. And so, we come from a world having been on every side of that table. The people that have made the thing and not reap the rewards, the producers that have, had to try to get at times people on board to make things and quite honestly not been able to give them as much reward as, they might have deserved or we would have liked to. And so for me, like it is at the core of the mission for Macroverse that we ultimately right size that equation, that the people that make the things and participate in the making of the things are the ones that get the glory and the largest share of the reward, or at least a very significant share of the reward, and that it is a fair and equitable system for everyone involved. What I see Web3 as, and when I say Web3, I'm going to really say the ability to use these technologies to do things that have either been incredibly hard to do or that have been that basically have been able to be obfuscated behind things like traditional Hollywood accounting, or you kind of look at the music industry, the movie industry, any of these comic books. There's always been a way to kind of hide the reality of the numbers, and what blockchains do beautifully is remove the ability to do that. So as we can bring more and more of this process on chain over time, it does things like instant payments for royalties. It does things like being able to see, here are the 100 people involved in a film production and what each of their roles are and what percentage of the profits or rewards are they contractually meant to get, and do those payments actually get delivered. Those are things that are incredibly challenging, that require hundreds of people in accounting departments to deliver. And this is something I don't talk about much, but the end goal for what we're building are, rails and tools and technologies that not only help create new content, new franchises in a new way with community ownership at the core of that in various capacities, but also that deliver on the promise of you get to make the thing, you know that you're going to get taken care of the way that you're supposed to get taken care of, and you never have to think about it again. That's the ultimate kind of point for what we're building as a company. Now, how does that impact, what does that mean for a project like the KIA? So I look at each of these collections, each of these PFP collections. These are characters. And I know this is, there was a time where everyone was talking about PFPs as identity. And yes, there is, of course, a component of that where you find a character or PFP that you really feel connected to, that you identify with, and that becomes your identity. It's the people that, people recognize that image as you, as a particular voice, as a point of view, as a, however you present yourself, in the online world. And that absolutely matters. My kids are almost 11 and 8, and they're already, have a lot of concern about, how they represent themselves online. If they're in Roblox, my daughter will spend 2 hours customizing an avatar. But I think there are, honestly, like at this point in the space, there were millions of NFTs that were minted in the gold rush, in the bull market. There are probably, in my estimation, 5 PFP collections that matter as PFP collections. The rest of them are interesting images, however you evaluate that, and sometimes really cool characters. And the thing that I have always been attracted to, and the reason that we were interested in, taking on the KIA, is because there is a world that is suggested by those characters. And for me, that means there's a rich opportunity for storytelling. There's a rich opportunity to generate something that connects with an audience. There is an opportunity to create something that people will fall in love with. And if people fall in love with those stories, that world, those characters, if we accomplish that collectively, then you've got that kind of next generation franchise. And you now, as a member of this collective that has created that, own a piece of it. And that is something that has never been possible before. So if you look at the history of comics or film or anything else, the best deal you could possibly get, and this is, relevant with my geek hat on, the best deal you could possibly get is the Rob Liefeld deal. And Rob Liefeld, for those that don't know, creator of Cable, creator of Deadpool, one of the top selling, artists at Marvel Comics of all time, one of the co-founders of Image Comics, which is, the most successful independent publishing company of all time. Rob and his peer group were at the right place at the right time, with the right popularity, with the right leverage to be able to negotiate contracts with Marvel that they will probably never do again. Those contracts gave them participation in the characters that they created. So when a Deadpool movie comes out, when a Deadpool toy hits the shelf, when he shows up in an animated series, when Cable's on X-Men 97 on Disney Plus right now, he gets a little piece of that. That's a pretty freaking sweet deal. Most creators will never have that opportunity, no matter how successful the thing that they made is. If they are incredibly lucky, they get a tiny piece of the back end and almost no way to verify what the actual profit and loss of the project they're involved with is without going to court. And we have some friends that have gone through that process, suing major studios for millions and millions of dollars, sometimes winning, sometimes losing, but we've seen that happen. So my point is, you as a person that owns a koala in the KIA, you own a character in this world. Now, what is this world? This is one of the places where we haven't been as good with the KIA as we have been with Bushido's or Vogu or some of the other projects. Yeah. The KIA, the world of the KIA is a little less defined. We had some ideas, we tried some things. So far, we haven't hit on the right story world. And it could be that that's something we keep working on and we'll eventually come up with something. I've got a new idea just over the past couple of weeks that I've been starting to noodle around with. But the ideal scenario is that the community comes together and we engage in a process where we define what that world is together, what this playground is, who are these koalas, why do they have an agency if they have an agency, how do they operate, what are the rules of this world that they live in, why is it engaging, why do people care? Not because you spent money on it, but why do other people care? And if we can answer those questions, we've got something we can build on. And until we answer those questions, we really don't. And that's my point of view in all of these projects, is that we have to have a foundation to build more stuff on top of. And it is not going to be a meme coin. It is not going to be another NFT collection. It's going to be taking the assets that already exist and adding value to them. And what I feel like people have missed in the KIA in particular is that we did not show up to take anything from you. We did not show up to take your NFTs in any way. In fact, it's exactly the opposite. We say, you own these characters. Let's create a playground and a world that these characters exist inside of. Let's start to define who these characters are. And then let's create content around those characters. And as we create content that resonates with an audience, that content becomes valuable, and more importantly, the characters that are at the heart of that content become valuable. And I don't mean that, I don't mean that just as financial value. I mean people care, and when people care, things acquire value. You look at any other part of the real world, and this is the part that really frustrates me about a certain section of Web3, is that we got so into the weeds around, forgive me for saying it this way, but we got so in the weeds of the nonsense about the speculative market that we forgot in some cases why things actually have value in the real world. And when you're looking through the lens of content, when you're looking through the lens of creating IP and franchises and building something that is meant to last decades and ultimately hundreds of years as a franchise that people and their kids and their grandkids and their grandkids ultimately fall in love with and want to see new permutations of and reboots of and reimaginings of, as we look through that lens, once again, all that matters is that people fall in love with it. If they fall in love with it, the original, very first printing of the Mickey Mouse card is all of a sudden worth a lot of money. An early issue of, I believe it was the first issue of Superman, just sold at auction for $6 million. Not because it was made in now I'm losing my geek credibility, but not because it was, printed in the 1940s, but because so many people care about Superman. Therefore, that first appearance, that early representation of the character has meaning, and therefore people want it, and therefore it has value. So this is how we look at all of this stuff. We have to create worlds that have characters that people care about, that they want to consume content from, and therefore the value of all of it increases. And I want to be very clear, not just monetary value, but the experience value, the participation value, the, every way that you could define that word. And it just so happens that if we accomplish that, almost unquestionably, the monetary value goes up as well, because it's just how things work. But it's not going to happen in a week or a month or 6 months. It's going to happen over years. And that's the thing that nobody's prepared for, that are complaining about what's happening in the space. Are NFTs dead? No, they are not dead. This is a new technology which is going to reshape many aspects of our world, but they are not going to look like what they looked like 3 years ago. And so trying to make them into that is a recipe for failure.
So I think that's one of the big misconceptions, especially with time and the space, is people aren't looking at reinventing anything. They're looking at taking that same roadmap style, artwork-based project and making it successful, by doing something a little bit differently these days. But I think a lot of people want something that's a again, I use air quotes, tangible. They want this stuff that makes it go from speculative to um, actually that kind of like tangible monetary value, but nobody ever has an idea how to do it. They just have that same roadmap of what they want to do. And I think that's kind of the big difference here in what you've been saying is like you guys have done everything and you know how to create, the people, I mean, it's just, it blows my mind. And anybody that's, like myself or, Hey Lady Valor and some others that are in here, anybody that's participated in this stuff and that's really seen the process knows it's not going to happen fast. It's just not possible.
Yeah, I mean, it's not, well, it is possible in varying degrees.
Okay, it's
Yeah.
not possible to do it.
Yeah, look, I mean, here's the other thing I don't usually talk about. Like, we are a startup. We're bootstrapping all of this. We're self-funding all of this at this point. So it's like, we don't have millions of dollars to throw at this. We have to be very tactical at where we put our energy and our focus. At the same time, we have done some things and we are in the middle of putting some things together, which are going to blow people's minds. And I can't say what they are right now. And that sounds like I'm deflecting, or it sounds like I'm like doing the thing of like make vague promises. But guys, like, we are doing some really interesting, cool things behind the scenes. And when I can talk about them, I will talk about them. And I think no one's going to see it coming. And it is going to be pretty freaking massive. At the same time, like, for those that don't know, like, we've built some really cool things in this space. We built one of the first customizable character, minting applications. So we have,
Which, by the way, I still haven't seen anyone else do. I've seen them attempt to do it and do, successfully do something similar-ish, but nothing's been done that awesome. Not that I've seen publicly. Anyway.
I appreciate that. I mean, look, I think that we were a little bit early on the customizable NFT trend. There have been some other projects which have done it and done it well, but I think the very nature of that goes back to what I started with, which is that this is the first project we launched ourselves, and instead of honestly, to some disagreement with my co-founders, we did not focus on how to make as much money as we could from that mint. What we focused on was how do we create as much emotional attachment as possible to these characters. And again, kind of taking a clue from video games and other types of experiences. If you go through a process of designing and crafting your own character rather than pulling the slot machine and hoping that you like what you get, you got somebody, or you create something that you have some level of attachment and connection to because you went through that process and experience. And for better or worse, like, you can look at the 6,667 Zeds that now currently exist. And every one of them that is, there are some blanks in there, which means they're actually tickets to come and create more characters. But everyone that's been crafted has been crafted by someone that took the time to make that character. And then a smaller group of people took the time to create a story around that character. And there's a bunch of stories that actually been submitted on the website. We have a built-in tool where you can, write a backstory or create a story around your characters. A smaller group of people came to the Discord and went through the storytelling sessions that we deliver to the community with no expectation of any immediate financial reward. So it's like, this is something we choose to do, that we're happy to do, that I and my other co-founders give our time to do, where honestly, we could be charging money for these types of classes. So, these are things that we feel very strongly, I feel very strongly, are giving some tools to the people that choose to engage. And this is the other part of my soapbox, which I'm going to get on here for a second, which is that I do not feel any obligation to give something to the community who doesn't show up and participate. Now, I do think you may benefit by just riding the wave that we are trying to create. So if you are someone that wants to sit back and hold whatever you have and wait and see, and I'll either be right or wrong at the end of the day. If I'm right, I think you'll be happy. If I'm wrong, you'll be in no different position than you are right now. So that's your downside. I think the flip side of that is if you do show up and choose to participate, we do teach these classes. We have, weekly times to engage with the community. I am open to any conversation at any time. I am really, I try to respond to things as quickly as I can when people ping me. It's been an insanely busy few months with the things that we're working on that, again, I can't talk about yet. But we are not hiding out anywhere. We are very much available, and we will find time to connect with people that want to connect with us. And we will work with people that want to work with us. And so if you show up with your koala and say, this is interesting, let's talk about this. I have a character. I think this character is so-and-so in this world. Well, great. How does this world work? Let's figure that out. Who is that character in this context? You might be the one koala that, ends up going through that process and creating a story that we then turn into comics that then goes out to, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people that people fall in love with. And you're now the Mandalorian in the, Star Wars, in my Star Wars analogy of the koala world. But I think, the piece I forgot to mention is that, because we have this process in place, because we see your characters, the characters that you own as integral pieces of these worlds, of these franchises, this is where the script really gets flipped. In that, yes, we have ideas for things that we want to build, stories that we want to tell, characters that we want to focus on, that I want to focus on in these different worlds. But every character has a story to tell, in my viewpoint. Every story has every character in that world, every koala in this context is a story, is a character with a story in this world. And so it is up to the community to raise their hand and say, I want to tell a story with my character. If we go through that process, we pay to create that content. So it is not us going like, great, that'll cost you several $1,000s. Please, transfer to this wallet address. Once we go through that process and say, this is moving on to be greenlit, to become comics, to become other forms of media as we continue down the road, that is not something we ask you to do. That is something we do. And we bring you along for the entire process. So when it's time to look at pages in the case of comics and say if there are any changes to the layouts that would fit better with what you had in mind, you get to engage in that. When we get letters back and we start to fine-tune dialogue and come to a final conclusion with that particular storyline, you're a part of that process. Like, you get to come behind the curtain and make the thing at whatever level you want to do it at. So that's not for everyone. And I recognize that. And it's one of the things that over time we have to build more tooling around, is different ways for people to participate at different levels. We rolled out a couple of AI playgrounds over the past couple of weeks where, that helps to start to move in that direction, so that, if you don't have an idea, we actually built a model where it'll help you generate ideas. But that's the thesis. The thesis is you own these characters. These characters exist in these worlds. And when you own those characters, the revenue that gets generated from them, if it becomes canonical, which is a community process, gets more than fairly shared back to you. So everything that happens with that character, it's the Rob Liefeld deal on steroids, with you actually owning the character. So it's a much better model for how we think these things grow over time. And it also creates tooling for this ongoing expansion where fan fiction, which has always been the thing that large entertainment companies have felt like they've had to patrol and to stamp on, and sometimes.
Uh-oh.
valuable part of growing and expand, as something that a fan makes can all of a sudden become quote unquote canonical in the broader universe and become meaningful to, again, hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people over time, with the person that did that work getting the lion's share of the benefit from it. So those are my soapboxes for the moment around this. But I just want to say to any KIA members in particular, and you can apply this to all of our projects, there's nothing for me other than wanting to see these projects succeed and wanting to build something with the fans, with the community, not for the fans and for the community. And there is a massive distinction there, and it's a harder road, but it is one that I think is much more meaningful long-term. So I invite you to come and talk about it, to challenge my thesis, to offer other things that you want to do. I mean, we will have these conversations if you show up to have these conversations. So Tiny, be the person who disagrees with everything I just said.
I've been waiting for. I've actually been thinking through my head.
Yes.
No, but some of that you've already answered, which obviously coming on here and speaking of, your thesis and your ideas behind this. Number one is people are going to say, why Macroverse? Why not the community? Why not, why not sell it to the highest bidder? I don't know. There's a million whys or who's or what, but I think you already answered that pretty well as to your why. And, I kind of understand where they're coming from, but, me, like I said, I just agree with you so much. I mean, I feel like who else and what else? Like, what else is there? Coming from the GSA myself, the GSA and the KIA to me are in very similar boats. Except I put the GSA a good bit further because the community did get to full on engage and experience in that process, and that's why, in my opinion, there is a lore, there is a story, and there's a little bit more engagement behind it.
Yeah.
I think the big thing is like, people are, the biggest thing I see is what are you doing and what have you done up to this point? Like, why? Why are we still kind of, I guess, stagnant? I think a lot of people focus on floor price as well, but nothing's changed, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, look, we've had the KIA under our umbrella for 10 months. And, I will absolutely admit, like, I wish we had done more with it over the course of 10 months. What I can share is the process that we've gone through. So when we first acquired the project, we were very excited about going through the same process, creating the world, kind of building out a overall lore more than the little bit that's kind of there as some scaffolding. Going through this process with the community to develop characters around it, and then kind of following that similar playbook. There are two things that we ran into going through that process. One is, and this is where I genuinely wish we had more voices from the community who had been around from the beginning that want to engage in this part of it, because we are making it up. We were not there from the beginning. Very well aware of that. Now, I will compare to the GSA. With the GSA, there were a few community members that were very engaged in storytelling. So it was very easy to pop in and say, oh, here's a bunch of ideas that are already floating around. Hats off to Max Phoenix, who is, he comes from a writing background. So it's like there were a lot of ideas that were already in place, and our job was more to hone and fine tune and bring more community members into that conversation. With Bushido's, we started absolutely from scratch and built that lore with the community. With Vogu, I'd say 80% of it is already in place, and we're just augmenting it now, working with one of the original founders. So it's a different process there. With KIA, as far as I know, it is the most blank slate out of all the projects that we've brought on. And here was our original concept, which I don't think we've shared. So the original concept was there are a lot of cute and fuzzy animal projects out there. And we did not have one of those. Now, one thing I will say is that, we are not here to be the island of lost toys. So we are not here just like scooping up every project we can get. The only projects that I have any interest in are ones that fit this thesis that there's a world here. There's something interesting that lends itself to creating stories and content with these characters set in an interesting world. So the original concept that I and Adam, my writing partner for 20 years, the original concept we had is there's a lot of cute and fuzzy animal projects out there. We don't currently have one of those kind of under our umbrella. So there's something fun to explore there for people that are maybe more interested in characters that fit into that more all ages, family friendly, little more, you could say, geared towards younger animation, kinds of characters, which was also how the project was originally kind of presented to us as the direction that it wanted to go in. So we thought there's something interesting there, both in the mix of projects that we were working on, and also, to give people a place to use a different part of their kind of storytelling and creative brain around, okay, we're not dealing with the post-apocalyptic world of zombies. We're not dealing with, sci-fi samurais. We're dealing with something set in this world in a sort of fictional, cartoon character, kind of aesthetic. And so, we started thinking about a couple of ideas. Could this be something that's more comedic? So it's kind of like The Office, or it's kind of like, a kind of Family Guy, kind of approach where, you've got koalas at the agency, and it's, kind of like a documentary style series. And so we started to play with that idea. And I think there is potentially something interesting there. We started to think about, is it a fish out of water story where you've got, my favorite koala is the tattooed koala. So you've got the tattooed koala who gets, kind of pulled into the adventure unknowingly, and then has to navigate that world. And he becomes a stand-in for the audience that helps us understand, why are the koalas the agents? And, the original idea was if the koalas are the agents, then maybe other animals, so we could collaborate with other communities, maybe other animals are other functions in this world, that this was a fully anthropomorphized, world where, the firemen might be ducks, and, the agents are koalas. And, we started kind of going down this road, and we created a batch of short comics that we have not released, that, started to kind of explore some of those ideas. Could they be more of a comic strip as opposed to a comic book, so that we could put stuff out more quickly on social media and start to engage people around that? We went down that road, and we didn't feel like it was working. And here's the thing. We are not going to have success just by putting stuff out that we don't think is good. And I'm not saying that, to disparage any of the work that was done, because we worked with some talented collaborators and people that I really like and appreciate the work that they did. But just putting it out to put it out is not doing any favors. So I'd rather take our time, get something that we really feel strongly about, that we can roll out with a approach that we believe in, that we think is going to really generate some results, than just doing some busy work. And that is kind of where we're at with the KIA right now. So the thing that has to happen, if we keep the project, if the KIA stays in Macroverse, the thing that has to happen is we have to go through this process. We have to figure out, what is this world? Why are these characters in this world? Who are these characters in this world? And now how do we develop that into something that is cohesive and that makes sense in the context of a larger storyline? And so I will share now the latest thought process that we've been having and talking about is that, and this is going to be very controversial, but I'm just throwing it out there as a context for conversation. If you look at the collection, these are not agents. So this is the fundamental challenge with this project that has dawned on me over the past couple of months as we've been wrapping our heads around this. These are stoners and, people chilling in the outback, chomping on eucalyptus leaves. Like, these are not, there are 5 agents in the collection, 10 agents in the collection that actually look like secret agents, that actually have anything to do with the concept of secret agents. So the project is kind of not the project that from a storytelling franchise point of view. Either you focus on these 10 agent characters and something like the Office idea, and then all the other koalas in the world, the 9,990 of them, are regular quote unquote people, which is one way to go, and maybe it's the right way to go. Or we need to have a conversation about, like, who are these characters? And I see, Billy, I see you. I appreciate you jumping in. Yes, they're undercover, but then what about the rest of the koalas? So you got 10,000 koala agents. How do we tell a cohesive story about 10,000 undercover koala agents? What are they doing? Now look, that alone could be interesting and exciting. What are they doing? Why are there 10,000 koalas undercover? Are they sent all over the globe? Are the koalas spying on the ducks that live, as they migrate, because they've got some kind of
putting out fires
that's happening over here? I mean, there could be something there, but these are the questions that we have to answer. And so again, we'll get there with something that we're happy with, but it would be way better if 5 or 10 or 20 people from the community that have any interest in the future of the project in this context would come and show up and have these conversations. We know how to get there as a group. This is why TV shows have writers' rooms. It's not one person sitting alone writing the story for something. It's a bunch of people coming together and asking these questions and throwing out ideas and aligning on the pieces that work and throwing away the pieces that don't work. That's how the best shows come together. I think a TMNT storyline could work. I mean, I'm all for a TMNT storyline. It's the 40th anniversary of Turtles this year. Love that. So yeah, I mean, again, I think there is something here. It's the reason we got attracted to it in the first place. But sometimes the way to get where you need to go is to really be willing to question every aspect of it. And again, that process would go a lot better with more people in that process. But if people don't want to go through that process, then it's going to be us doing that work to figure out something that we think will work.
So, and I guess, coming from the community standpoint, how, I guess I'm asking if I'm asking from their side, how do we get involved? And what happens if we don't? What happens if there's not a percentage of the community that wants to participate? They just want to see.
You're giving me a chance to address another kind of pretty important aspect of this. So, there's been some conversation around, our focus is split too thinly. Like we've got all these projects, we're trying to do all these things. We're not focused on one particular thing like the KIA. And I think that's a fair criticism, but I will say there is a reason for that as well. This is not a random choice that we've made as a company or as a group that, you can look at any particular project, especially in this space, and it's going to live or die based on the meta, the market, the amount of attention they can get, how many units they can sell in Target. These are the most successful projects in the space are still pretty small in compared to the biggest franchises on the planet. And so, if you look at any of those metrics that matter for building something that is the kind of thing we're trying to build, then it makes sense to have multiple at-bats. And so the way that we approach building our tech and our platform and the things that we are moving towards as we continue to refine our mobile app, as we continue to build experiences. Billy, you said something about, choose your mission storylines, et cetera. Yes, that is something that we are actually working on, is the ability to do choose your own adventure style missions. We did one a couple of weeks ago with a Vogu model chatbot. So there are things like that we have planned. And that's a good way. It's a good segue into saying, like, the things we're building on the platform side, what you will see over the rest of this year and into next year, the worst case scenario, The worst case scenario for these projects is that they seamlessly plug and play into everything else that we're building. And so, look, I will say that, quite honestly, like, we'd be stupid if we are getting a ton of traction with the Vogu, for example, and we don't focus on making that on taking advantage of that. But the benefit to every other project is that they are in this larger ecosystem, and we're building interoperability into everything. We talked about the ability to tell stories with your characters with the Zeds. We didn't mention, if you don't know, we also built a kind of fundamental stats and inventory system into all of those characters, which is the foundation for all kinds of gaming experiences. So we will be able to bring the Koalas and the Bushidos and the Vogu and any other projects that we bring on or launch into that same system, which means all of a sudden you have interoperability between these projects to build different types of experiences. So the worst case scenario, if we win at any level, is that you are the Guardians of the Galaxy while Spider-Man is in the spotlight. And then all of a sudden people go, wait a second, that Guardians set of characters that seem like, no one really cared about, all of a sudden they're the big franchise and Spider-Man is over here. And that is how a multi-franchise company works. You have different spotlights on different projects at different times, but there's a halo effect that raises all of them together. And I think, if you look at the way Marvel works, if you look at the way DC works, if you look at any of these companies that have multiple storylines, franchises, sets of characters, that's how it works. So you have, multiple things happening at the same time. You're building a certain type of infrastructure that supports those things happening at the same time, where some of it is very much you build something for this, but it applies to everything else. And then you get the benefit of that interoperability across all the different projects. So we're doing that on a tech with our technology. We're doing that with our processes, our methodologies, how we work on these different projects. It would be crazy for us to go, we're going to do something, in storytelling and franchise building over here with Vogu. We're going to launch a meme coin with KA. Like, that would be insane. And if that's what we were saying we were going to do, then I think we'd be very suspicious and we would definitely be the wrong fit for probably both projects. But we're saying we have a way of approaching this that we believe works. And all we need to do is plug each of these projects into this system, go through this process, which is going to take time, bring these things to market, create things that people care about. Now, I said all we need to do, and then it sounds like, yes, there's a lot to do. but at the end of that road is something that lives in the world in a meaningful way. And quite honestly, the fact that it came from an NFT project doesn't even matter. It's just the people that hold the NFTs that get the benefit of it. So that is my rant, and I appreciate you guys tuning in for that rant.
Absolutely. So, and this is great. I see some people actually like kind of participating, and I think that's my biggest thing is, I feel like with some of these communities, there's a small handful of people that I think feel entitled and feel active, even though they're not there day to day, putting in the time. And I feel like they take things personally. And I want to go ahead and invite everybody to please, come participate. Even if you didn't get a chance to make it tonight, I still want to actively discuss, again, for anybody that maybe doesn't want to be a storyteller or doesn't think that's the best idea for the KIA, I challenge you to come up and tell us what is, because this goes for so many other, PFP projects and everything. I mean, I've seen so many try to reinvent the wheel and do secondary drops or merch drops or, make that tangible thing. We're going to give somebody something for being a holder. And it never works because there's no revenue. You know what I mean? Like there's just no way to give this stuff away. There's no way to make it. Like people quickly find out how hard and expensive it is. And I think that's one of the greatest things about Macroverse is just by community participation, you're getting those tangible things. You're getting a course on how to write. You're getting a course on how to write a screenplay, basically. I mean, you're getting all this different stuff that, like I've said, I mean, you could take a night course and it's going to cost you probably hundreds to thousands of dollars to get this information. And it's just by being a holder. And all that you're asking is for participation. And I think that's the one big thing that I've not seen, at least in the Macroverse side of things. In the Macroverse Discord, the only participation that I've seen is on the side of people saying, why haven't we done more? And I just want to see more of this excitement and questions and stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, look, for a space that's all about self-sovereignty, what we're really saying is like, you want more KIA stories? Let's make more KIA stories, but let's do it together. Show up. You know, you want more GSA stories? We've got a whole channel in the Discord that says pitch your story. You don't have a story for it. You don't know what that story is. We've got a whole channel in the Discord, which is put your character in this channel so other people can look at them and be inspired by them and come up with story ideas. Then you become partners with somebody that does want to tell those stories or can cast them as characters in their stories. I mean, this is a whole process that we have spent over 2 years refining. And it works. It works when people come in and play. And when people don't come in and play, it doesn't work. So, you know,
and it only takes one.
What I should say, it works for the people that do it. It really does. So, you know, this is where we are, and this is where we are with each project. You know, it's where we are with the KIA right now. So, you know, I hope that at least gives some context as to who we are, where we are, how we think about this stuff. Again, I am not looking for everyone to agree with this, but I do not want anyone to think that we are going blindly around, you know, hoping that something works and praying that we don't get found out about something. Like, that's not the case. So I do not want to make this personal, but I am a little offended by some of the conversation that's been happening with people that do not know me, have never spent the time to find out what we're up to, and are unwilling to engage in a discussion. You know, and like that to me is the only part that's frustrating. Is I am absolutely willing to talk about all of this. I'm 100% available to get into the weeds, but you know, I am not interested in having a conversation that goes nowhere when it's just the same thing over and over again. I want to solve problems. I don't want to get stuck in the mud with anyone. So, you know, and yes, I agree. Digital, physical, comic book, plush toys. I mean, look, this is the spoiler alert for the evening.
All right.
I really hope someone else doesn't go do it because I say this. But look, the one thing with the KIA that's real low-hanging fruit, and man, should I say this? I guess I'll say it. The one thing that's really low-hanging fruit is a certain type of plushie, and this is something we've been investigating as well. So, like, I'm not promising that. I want to be really clear. Like, I'm not promising anything out of this call. Like, I am reevaluating how we're approaching some of this stuff. So, we are not promising anything. What I am promising is come show up and we'll make it. But I do think there are a handful of these characters that, done right and placed into the right retail environments, would do incredibly well. So I think, you know, there is definitely something there.
So I think, you know, for me to kind of wrap things up on my end, I think the biggest thing for anybody asking, what have you done? I think like my rebuttal is like, what have we asked for? You know, like, and work has been done. um, work has been done that you didn't feel was what you wanted to put out there. And I respect the honesty. And I think it's better to have somebody that says, look, we're working hard and we're doing a million things at once. And we tried to make this a priority, but it just wasn't working. And, to be honest, that honesty is the biggest thing to me to come up and say, like, right now, at the moment, we've got some ideas, but it's not number one, the driving force behind Macroverse at the moment. And my response to the reason why I love that is because the community's not there kicking it into high gear, making it the first priority. And I feel like, if we can all get that energy behind it and get a few people there, I mean, the sky's the limit. And that goes for not KIA, but for any project or any content in general that's on board. I mean, it just takes people coming together. And I hate to see anybody complain when nobody's there to put in the work. And
well, I don't even mind people complaining. Like, everybody has the right to feel however they feel. Like, I have no issue with any of that. It is purely the unwillingness to engage that is personally challenging for me, because I have been raised as someone that, my entire way of trying to work with people professionally, personally, really in every capacity, is to try to put myself into the other person's point of view and, trying to come to some sort of consensus where it's as much of a win-win as it can possibly be. And so when I bump up against people that don't seem to be interested in that, that is the button that I have that I recognize can be pushed. So Billy, I appreciate you. I would love to connect. Billy Hayes is saying, I have a strong background in licensing and manufacturing. Let me know if I can help. I would love to connect with you and talk to you about what we're thinking, around those plush toys and kind of the concepts that we have, and see if that makes sense for your background. That'd be awesome. So if you can, if you don't mind pinging me either in the Macroverse Discord or in the KIA Discord, whichever you prefer, but honestly, my preference is in the Macroverse Discord. if you don't mind pinging me, would love to connect and chat. So look, I think that's where we are. I think I am a student of the creative process. There are times when you have to set something down to be able to come back to it with fresh eyes. I feel like we're kind of at that moment with the KIA. We're a little bit less there with the GSA. We are very actively working on stuff with Vogu again right now, which I am very excited about. There's a little teaser for June 2nd, which is going to be exciting. Most exciting to me, Jason Trinidad, who's the original creator of the Vogu, is back hard at work on a bunch of new stuff with us to roll this new things that we're working on with Vogu out. So very excited about that. And then there is, again, like I feel like this sounds like a broken record, but you really have no idea what we've been working on for the past 6 months. And when we get to talk about it, that's all I'm gonna say. It does not exist in this space, and it is going to be a surprise in the best possible.
As my 6-year-old would say, hit the like button, subscribe.
All the things. But please, honestly, like, please, let's talk. Let's get. If there is a group of koala holders in particular that care about this project, find a time where we can all get together and have a positive discussion about what is best for the project. And I will not be chased out of the project, because I think there's something worth doing with this project. But if at the end of those discussions, it is truly decided, if there is an actual plan for the project that is better than what we are proposing, great, let's explore that, but it's not going to be just because some people are not happy in Discord. Like, that's not going to be why. So, we have a plan. Come be a part of that plan. Come challenge that plan. But it's going to have to be a discourse, and we'll see where
I want to also challenge the regulars, the regular Macroverse family, to start pinging some KIA and start challenging some of these people to come and hang out more. I think it's also, it's kind of our fault as well for just not engaging in some of these channels and stuff. I'm guilty of being a holder and not actively going into the KIA channel. So, I mean, maybe, do better as well.
I mean, this is a little bit of a tangent, but look, I mean, the reality is, like, we made a decision earlier this year, rightly or wrongly, that we want to bring all the projects together in one server, and that is the Macroverse server. And so if community members want to hang out in the original servers, that's great. Like, by all means, that can be a community space, and I have no issue with that whatsoever. At the same time, from an operational perspective, like, it just makes sense to have everything in one place. And part of the hope for that, as we were talking about, like, the nature of being a company that has multiple properties, multiple franchises, and not just, you really want to have questions about what we're doing, it's not just the 5 NFT projects. We have 100 properties. So, it is well beyond just those 5 that we are inching along in various ways. And, some of them will have NFT components and some of them may not, but, there's a plan to build all of those into this larger ecosystem. So it makes sense to have one place. And again, like a Marvel kind of a setup, what we hope is that you'll come from the GSA and fall in love with the Vogu. That has happened. We hope you'll come from the KIA and go, I kind of like zombie stories. I can go make my own zombie. That's cool. I'll do that. We hope that you'll go, like, you know what? All this post-apocalyptic, dark, crazy stuff that you guys have been working on, where's the hug that I need? And we hope you'll find your way to a warm, fuzzy koala for that hug life experience. So, it's about, creating a way for people to exercise their creative brains across these different areas. And the one that, I not to minimize anyone's, financial situation with what has happened in the market over the past couple of years, because I know it's been very rough for a good number of people. But the one upside to the where we are in the market right now is these characters are quite attainable. And so, if you have come from one project and find yourself intrigued by another, it's not that hard to get a hold of a couple of them to start playing with. So, it actually puts us in a good spot for our objectives. And for those that stick it out and help build it, it puts you in a good spot as well. That is my belief. So I think that's a good place to wrap up. Tiny, I don't know if you have any final.
My biggest takeaway, and I just hope people can see, from this hour or so, is that we do care, and there's passion behind it. That just because the spotlight's not front and center stage every day, it doesn't mean that it's not being thought about. So I hope people can see by this that there's a lot of stuff going on, and that nobody's forgotten about. I think is the biggest thing, because I've seen that across so many different of these smaller projects that get picked up as just feeling like they've been forgotten. And my biggest thing again is just please come hang out, tune in next week, check out some of the past ones. Go back and look at the Choose Your Adventure. I mean, there's so much stuff that you guys just have no idea what's happening, and we talk about it every week. So come hang out in the Discord, please.
Yeah, perfect. And also tweet at me, happy to engage there too. But Discord, you'll get one-on-one participation.
Yep.
We'll be back here, same time next week, same bat channel, same wallet time, same wallet channel. And we'll have more stuff to talk about then. So appreciate everybody tuning in, for letting me get on my soapbox here for a little bit. And I hope if nothing else, that, this has helped to clarify the thinking. There's a lot of thought that has gone into how we put all this together. And again, I'm not convinced that I'm 100% right about everything, but I've been pretty right about a lot of things. And, I think I'm right about this one. So we'll see. But I appreciate Billy. Thank you for tuning in. Framework Fortune, I see you. Thank you. Matt, always happy to see you. C137, you've been so supportive recently of the stuff that we've been posting. So I just want to shout that out. I appreciate you. Lady Valor, as always. So everyone that's tuned in, really appreciate your time and attention. And we'll see you next week.